What is going on? This is another edition of Flobito's Book Club. It's worth a skim. This is actually one of three exclusive shows available only on Patreon and, of course, on the website. But for those of you who don't know who also want to share it, it's patreon.com/FloboBoys. And I thank all of you for making this a possibility. And the best way to do that is to talk about some books. But before I do that, just want to say if you guys have not seen the other episodes of Flobito's Book Club, they're all available on the Patreon platform, except for the last episode we had talking about the Kingston series. That was a little bit of an experiment because I got the authors on the show. That one's available on YouTube, the only non-exclusive episode of Flobito's Book Club, which is pretty cool. The idea was this started off last year, 2021, as an idea for me to read 5 books in a year because I have slacked off. And so the original schedule for the show was a book every other month. But since I felt kind of frisky, kind of froggy, and even though next month would be when the show should air, I figure I do a bonus episode. And this bonus episode is a little different because it's a book I read for fun, like completely for fun. You know, the idea was I didn't think this will be a book club worthy show or worthy book. I'll explain why in a second. But I thought it'd be kind of a cool thing to eventually add it in as a bonus of a bonus. A bonus episode of a bonus show you can only get on Patreon. This book here is called Nitro, and got a little hotspot from my thing, but you can tell it's a cover is from WCW Professional Wrestling, and it's they say don't judge a book by its cover. Well, this covers pretty much the entire book in a nutshell. So if you're thinking to yourself, hey, look, I don't like wrestling, I'm walking away, I understand. But Nitro is not just a wrestling book. It isn't a wrestling glossary. It isn't a match by match breakdown, or it isn't a how to spot a super fan of wrestling, even though it has all of that too. This is actually the genre of books I read the most for fun, and that is business nonfiction. I like reading books that tell me stories of how networks or companies or corporations handle challenges. That's kind of that's like my jam. I don't go out of my way to do that, but if I am left to my own devices, I kind of do that. This is why on past episodes of this show, I've done Desperate Networks, that book about TV networks and programming false schedules. And one of my favorite books of all time is An American Icon, about when Alan Mulally, became CEO of Ford and basically turned that company around, and it didn't have to get bailout money from the government. Nitro talks about World Championship Wrestling in the 90s and late 90s as it went toe-to-toe with the WWF. But the real story, it was how it was ran. It was part of the Turner Network empire, and Ted Turner bought this wrestling promotion because he was just a fan. And no one really told Ted Turner no, but all the advertisers, meaning the sales team who was responsible for getting the ad sales of the show, hated it because there was no financial justification to have it because advertisers didn't want to associate with professional wrestling. And to me, that's already a cool dynamic of this media mogul having this empire and trusting people of telling him what's good, what's bad, what's worth investing into. And they are saying this one thing you love is not good. You should not be worthy at all. And he's like, no, I'm a fan. We're going to keep it the way it is. World Championship Wrestling suffers for years and years and years because it has a Southern image. Folks like you and me who have a certain kind of je ne sais quoi, basically everyone that's outside of these bean counters demographic because they never measure who people are really. Basically watch the show, but will never admit to watching the show. Under the guise of a television executive, Eric Bischoff, the company turns around. And as a wrestling fan, this actually led into the most profitable times of the sport, where World Championship Wrestling and World Wrestling Federation, or the WWF, were fighting. But for anyone who's not a wrestling fan, basically it was the cool story of someone taking on a brand that did not turn a profit, hiring someone that knows more about the product, and having that turn around to being a massive moneymaker. And I think that's the cool story there. Now, eventually, WCW had its own issues, and not much of a spoiler because, frankly, you can Google WCW. That hasn't been around in 20 years because WWF eventually bought WCW. But the story of this company that was inside this big company that was on its way to profitability until the legs got cut out under them was really gripping stuff. And I don't want to make everything, I want to tell you the whole plot of the book. If you call it that, it's nonfiction, there's no plot. But basically, there was a changing of the guard, and the philosophies changed about the importance of pushing passion projects, of which wrestling was. So, this book was given to me by a colleague of mine, Jack Farmer. We work on a lot of wrestling shows. So, I approached it as reading a book about the sport, but ultimately, it became a story about television networks, corporate mergers, corporate governance, science and data versus instinct in business. It's something I really did appreciate. If you're not a fan of the sport and you look past that, it is a very cautionary tale about how moods and how dispositions between advertisers and audiences can change. It doesn't matter if it's TV or your lemonade stand. But that was pretty interesting. If you are a wrestling fan, it definitely is a walk down memory lane because in order to underscore the importance of milestones, they do mention certain storylines and wrestlers who were around at the time. And they explain who they are. They even pretend if Hulk Hogan's an alien. So it kind of walks you through if you're not familiar with the characters. They kind of are secondary or even tertiary to the main point of the book. Nitro by Guy Evans. The subtitle is The Incredible Rise and Inevitable Collapse of Ted Turner's WCW. It's available now on any bookstore. This you can tell it's a big one. It's kind of thick. I don't know if you can tell the word size, the text size. It's about 500 pages, 550 pages with the glossary and index. So, do I recommend it? This is the most difficult question to ask. Do I recommend this book? I would say ultimately yes, because again, this is a genre I love, but you could see why I hesitated putting on the book club because it's like it's a thing I like. It's like the equivalent of me liking lo-fi stuff before lo-fi was cool, or me liking jean shorts. Like there's comfortable jean shorts and bad jean shorts, but if you're not about the whole thing wholesale, is it worth recommending? Flobito says yes. It's a little dense in parts. I mean, it's again over 500 pages, so I would say it's 3 out of 5 books or Flobitos. I'm not really sure what my rating system is here. 3 out of 5 stars. Australia's, if you will. Read it. You can skim it pretty easily because you kind of know by the spine it's rise and fall. You can pretty much skim chapters over chapters and the gist will still be there. But the cast of characters, the executives, I mean, in this case, that are mentioned are pretty interesting to see how they interact while WCW changed and modified. That does it for me on this edition of Flobito's Book Club. It's worth a skim. I'll be back next month with another book entry. If there's something that you want me to check out or read, let me know on the show already. We've done nonfiction, we've done fiction, we've done romance, we've done comedy, and all that good stuff. And I can't wait to be back with you with another recommendation.